to the World Satsanga on the 29th of March 2014. And so we've got Yvonne, Mo, Atso, Chris and Marnie online. As I've just explained to people, I think the time zone's changing for summertime, or standard time has confused a few people, but that doesn't matter because they can catch up with the recording. So as we just let Skype stabilise a moment, just going to go through the agenda. So we've got a comment about why major geological changes happen. Actually, this is interesting because as I've been thinking about the subjects for this week's Satsanga, or this month's Satsanga, I've actually been drawn towards the weather systems as well. So we can talk about the weather systems as part of this. And then the part afterwards is talk about what is the space in between space. And that's basically to do with what is in between the structure of the multiverse, and I'm going to talk about that in some way. And I'm going to be happy for people to ask questions throughout that particular subject, because it's a very difficult subject to get around, because it's almost like the back door to the structure, and only certain entities can use it, which is interesting. And at the end of meditation, I changed it from healing a specific friend, because we've got lots of problems in Russia right now. One of my readers is actually in Kiev in the Ukraine, and he's trying to understand what's going on there. So with a Satsanga we did with my Slovenian group, we did a healing specifically for the Russian and Ukraine issue. So I'm going to basically copy that and hold that again today. Okay. Right, so I'm going to talk about these major geological changes, because there's two parts to this. There's clearly the topography of the Earth, and there's the weather system. And like I say, I've been drawn towards talking about the weather system, because the weather system is the first line of defence, or should I say the first area where we start to get an understanding of what's going on frequently with the Earth. But I want to talk first about the geological changes, because the geological changes are based upon two things, and the one affects the other. The geological changes are basically about what happens with the core of the Earth, and the core of the Earth is as we know, is a fluid system. It's a magma-based system, which is really very, very hot minerals or metals, and they are a great big ball of super white hot minerals and metals, and that is well beneath the surface of the Earth, and that area is magnetic because it's got metals within it. Now, when the Earth rotates, in essence the magma in the centre of the Earth rotates with the Earth, but it can get left behind at certain points. So if the Earth is affected by external bodies, such as the other planets within the solar system, and how the solar system works in relationship to the galaxy, and how the galaxy works in relationship to the physical universe, then we get an instance where the magma inside the Earth can, in fact, shall I say, move autonomously to the outside crust of the Earth, and that means that we can and do get changes to the topography, which can be caused by volcanic conditions or earthquake conditions. And again, these things also create things like tsunamis and those sorts of natural disasters that we experience sometimes. But the interesting thing here is, though, that the actual magma itself has a polarity to it, a magnetic polarity, and that this magnetic polarity affects the weather system of the Earth, but it also affects, of course, the topography of the Earth. Now, when I was receiving information on this, I'm receiving information right now as I'm speaking, by the way. I received information that suggested that although we do get pole shifts and the poles can flip over completely, so we can go from the north being at the north and the south being at the south, and then the south pole changing, so actually the south pole's at the north and the north pole is at the south of the axis of the Earth. That changes the way in which the magma interfaces with those vent points, such as volcanoes and such as the tectonic plates. And so it creates a change in the topography of the Earth from the perspective of the outer crust and how that appears to us, whether it's got water around it or whether it is land-based crust, as it were. Because the crust is under the water as well, of course. The water just happens to be something which is there as a result of the weather system. Now, this magma changes because of the location of the Earth within the solar system, and more importantly, how the solar system rotates within the rotation of the galaxy, which of course rotates in a certain way in vast quantities of time around and within and without in fact, I've just been told it's like a figure of 8. It rotates within the universe itself, and so the position of the Earth within the solar system, within the galaxy, within the universe, affects the orientation of the magma within the centre of the Earth, and the orientation of the poles thereof. And so this is the physical response to the location of the Earth and how it affects the geology. Now, on top of that, we've got the weather systems. Now, clearly the weather systems are also affected by the magnetic alignment of the magma in terms of its position within the Earth and its alignment of the magnetic poles relative to the axis of the Earth, and how it rotates, and how it rotates around the Sun, and how the Sun rotates around the rest of the galaxy. And so that creates a change in weather systems, and we've been experiencing some changes in weather systems. I mean, the States has experienced lots of changes. The UK has experienced lots of changes as well, and the whole ethos of what we understand as being the seasons has changed dramatically recently. One of the other big reasons for changing the weather system, which of course can also affect the geology, because weather, lots of weather can affect where we are in terms of the geology, because of the so the weather systems themselves can make a big difference because with the rainfall affecting various different areas in the sea and how it moves around the planet, in terms of whether we get hurricanes, whether we get tornadoes, whether we get just very high winds or unseasonal weather, affects the topography as well. And it erodes the topography away in some way, shape or form, or it causes certain seas to rise, or even lakes and rivers to rise in above their normal expected levels of water in comparison to the topography of the Earth. And we know that we've had seas regress quite a lot recently, and areas silt up. And we also know that right now we're currently in a mini ice age. So when we go into a summer of the Earth, the poles will melt even more, and we'll get more water content on the Earth, and therefore the land area that is above the water will change, and it'll be drastically reduced the case of that. But I want to get back to the weather in terms of frequency, because if we think about basic physics, when we apply warmth to ice, that ice melts and becomes water. When we apply more warmth or more energy to the water, it starts to vaporize and become steam, and then later it becomes part of the air. And this is a very, very simple example, very simple sort of scientific example of how when we increase the frequency of something by giving it energy, the condition of something changes from being one of a low frequency condition to a higher frequency condition. The ice being a lower frequency condition, and the steam being a higher frequency condition of the same molecular structure, which is of course H2O, water in this instance. Now, because we are working together, and we are starting to, on average, increase the frequency of the Earth to a level above where it was, say, even 50 years ago, we are making it lighter. We are reducing its density. Now, in terms of the example with the ice to water to steam or to air, that is a reduction in density. It's an increase in frequency, and it's a reduction in density. And we're having the same thing with the Earth. And this creates a condition where the Earth is getting lighter, and therefore its own frequencies are higher, and therefore it's less dense. And this affects the weather system, because the weather system starts to work in a way which is concurrent with a higher frequency body of the Earth. And so our weather systems are changing significantly because of that, and we're starting to get more temperate climates at night, in the winter sometimes. Other areas are getting more pronounced weather systems for winter or for summer. But in general, though, the temperature of the Earth will increase because of this change in frequency. And this means that we're going to start to move out of this this mini ice age we've currently got, where we've got lots of ice on the North Pole, lots of ice on the South Pole, and with the change in frequency, these things will start to melt, which will increase the amount of water which is on the Earth, and therefore the shorelines will start to disappear, and the topography of the Earth will change, and so therefore there'll be less land above water. And so there's two things happening here. There's the position of the Earth and how the magma affects the geology and the weather systems, but there's also how we are affecting it, because we're working together and we're becoming higher frequency. We're ascending all of the time, and this also affects the weather system. And of course, the weather systems affects the geology because of the way it affects. It erodes things away. It allows this mini ice age to change. So that's what's going on. And right now we're progressing quite fast, actually, in terms of our frequency. Our frequencies are moving very, very quickly upwards. We're ascending very quickly upwards, and so the weather systems are changing quite quickly as well. Actually, they're changing faster as a result of our frequential change, our ascension, than they would do because of the location of the Earth and the solar system within the galaxy, and the galaxy within the universe. And so we've got massive changes there as well. Now, the pole shifts tend to change because of the location of the galaxy within the universe. Sometimes they're classified as being the positions of the zodiac, but there's a much bigger wheel spinning there as well. But for what we're experiencing right now, in terms of geology changes and in terms of weather changes, it's basically because of we're ascending. We are working better, even though we're having areas of war and conflicts and strife and suffering. On average, we are moving upwards through the frequencies quite fast, and that's causing major changes to weather systems and also major changes to the geology as well. Okay, has anybody got any questions on that? Because it's quite a mouthful, that was, in terms of understanding where we are, what we're doing, for ourselves and how it affects our Earth.
Yes, you should answer.
Okay, that's her first, and then I'll do Chris.
In regards to the pole shift, can you elaborate a bit more? Do we expect pole shift anytime soon? And if yes, will they affect our lives? And is relevant at all
Yeah.
at this point.
So the question was, how close is the pole shift to us, and how will it affect us? The pole shift, I'm just picking up the information. We're in an area of like 500 years where this thing's going to happen, and we're experiencing certain minor changes of pole shifting already. About a year and a half ago, I detected that we had moved about 5 or 6 degrees with the poles further away than they were previously, because there's always an offset with the poles compared to geometric north versus magnetic north, of course. But this is happening as we speak. But it can flip at any moment within this 500 years. It just depends upon what's happening around us, where we are within the location. But it may be within our lifetime, maybe after our lifetime in this instance. But in terms of how it affects us, clearly our navigation systems are going to take a big hit. We'll have to go outside and buy new Garmins, for instance, or TomToms, and things like the navigation systems on aeroplanes and on boats and spacecraft will have to be changed as well, because they rely on magnetic conditions to be able to allow us to have the navigation based upon the magnetic north condition, although we still do use the global positioning satellites to help us as well. So we're going to have major changes in terms of our ability to navigate. I mean, things like pigeons, for instance, they'll also struggle. Chris has just said, he sent me a message saying he had the same question as that. So, but in essence, the bigger issue for us is going to be how it affects the geology and how it affects the weather systems with us. We can very quickly change our technology to cope with different positions of the magnetic north, for instance, whether it becomes magnetic south as being uppermost rather than downmost. It's the weather systems. Now, there will be some major weather system changes, but what I'm getting here is that we'll be able to cope with it. We will have changes that are going to be so profound that we will have whole sort of cities devastated, and we've experienced some of that already with places like Christchurch in New Zealand, where they've had a big hit with an earthquake. They're having to rebuild the city, and of course we've got tsunamis in Japan as well. And yes, it will get warmer as a result of this, because as our frequencies change, we increase our frequency, we get lighter, and we're going to have less ice at the poles, and so it will get warmer. But we will get changes in the jet stream. Things will we'll get more temperate conditions in certain areas, but other areas will have more rain as well. Yes, Samani just said pole shifts in the fossil records correlate with mass extinctions. That is correct for animals or incarnate vehicles that don't have the ability to cope with the changes. So this means that as a so-called intelligent race or so-called intelligent incarnate vehicle, we should be able to cope with it, but we will have a hard time. Actually, if it ends up being more like 500 years in the future and our technology is much better, then we'll be able to cope with it with a much more robust methodology, because we'll see it coming, and maybe our cities won't be specifically on the surface. Yeah, Marnie just said the thinning of the herd. Yeah, and basically that, along with virus conditions, is a way of reducing the population of the Earth so that the Earth can cope with the demand on it from the incarnate species. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's useful to allow the Earth to regenerate, and some of these things are there to allow the Earth to regenerate, so that we can make better use of it later. I mean, at some point we're not going to use fossil fuels, for instance, because that's depleting the earth. That causes a problem. Same with getting gas, for instance, with the fracking technology. When we're starting to use methodologies that allow us to use free energy, for instance, we won't need to have the same type of energies and abuse the earth in the way we are. And in fact, the pollution won't be anywhere near as the same. And again, all of this stuff will allow the earth to rise to the frequencies. And of course, interestingly enough, Marnie's talked about the thinning of the herd there. Well, crystals have already been used and are in use already. Now, Chris has asked if crystals will be used. We're already using crystals in technology right now. The quartz crystal is already used as a method of accruing time in our quartz watches and our quartz clocks, and also the microprocessor in our computers. But in terms of crystals for other technologies, like crystal-based technologies that Atlanteans use, yes, we'll be using those again anyway. I mean, and we're already using them for healing anyway. But the thinning of the herd, actually, that's an interesting statement, because when you look at it from a different angle, actually, the thinning of the herd, or the reduction in the civilization of mankind as an incarnated vehicle on the planet Earth, is also concurrent with the number of individuals who have ascended. So those who need to stay here to progress because they haven't reached a certain frequency level will stay here, and everybody else will have ascended out of the way. So those who supposedly have their bodies killed off, they won't need to incarnate anymore, because if they disappear as a result of some of the mass extinction through some of the things like earthquakes and volcanoes and very, very powerful weather systems, that will be used to move them out of the system, so that they will be out of the cycle of reincarnation. And also, some individuals will be moving into that anyway, naturally, so their bodies will be a higher frequency, and so therefore they won't be affected in the same way as those who stay at a lower frequency with these different weather systems and different geological changes. Okay. Any other questions on this before we move on to the next? Yeah.
Hi guys, Jeremy here. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy.
As you say, we're coming out of a mini ice age. Global warming is a reality. I take it climate change, man-made climate change, is a myth.
Well, the information I've picked up is that clearly we do make an effect on the Earth because of our pollution. But when you look at it from the point of view of what happens in the natural cycle of things, and you work out that as more pollution comes from farm animals, for instance, in terms of methane gas, then you start to realise that there's a lot of talk about our damage in the Earth and affecting the weather systems, and global warming is really is an opportunity to charge us more tax. Because if we feel that we're reducing our pollution, we and we have cars that have lower particulate rates, then we don't get charged as much tax. But it's a vast misunderstanding, basically, because we do affect the Earth because we do pollute it, but the amount of pollution that we create at the moment isn't that significant to cause the big changes that we're experiencing. However, the two together, our effect with our own pollution, both radiation-based and fossil fuel-based, and the natural pollutants or methanes that occur through vegetation rotting, through animals and their metabolic systems working, would and does have an effect. And it will have an effect right up until the point where we start to move away from fossil fuels, or move away from manufacturing processes that do pollute, and we start to use other processes that are much more eco-friendly. And so that point is, I'm getting that within the next 100 years or so, we will move away from some of our most polluting methods of manufacturing and of generating fuels, we'll have moved right away from that, because we'll be having access to other technologies that will be given to us through individuals supposedly inventing it, but they'll be receiving it because it'll be channeled information to them, or it'll be given to us in other ways, or in terms of we'll be discovering methods to get the free energy, the prana, if you want to call it that energy which is part of the multiverse and part of the source, and dealing with that. And there's already individuals who are providing generators that are able to create energy in a lossless way by accessing the free energies that are out there. So global warming because of man-made pollution is not strictly true, because there's bigger systems at play as well. But we do add to it, but not in the way that the politicians would have us know. Any other questions on this? Okay. Right. Okay, I'd like to move on to the next subject, which is what is the space in between space. Now, this is quite a subject in its own right, because it deals with the space that we don't see. Now, there's two ways of understanding this, and if we understand it in terms of the physical universe first, then it gives us a thought process to work on the greater reality later. So the example is, using the physical universe, what we see now, what we can detect now, what we understand now of the physical universe is a mere fraction of it. And scientists are starting to realise that there's something holding the physical universe together. And they call it dark matter, because they don't understand what's doing it. But in essence, if you look at the information I've picked up about there's 12 frequencies within the physical universe to create it, and we start to realise that there are different things represented within the physical universe that we can only see or detect when we are on those different frequency levels, and such as when we are able to perceive the different environments and different entities, we can communicate with the different entities when we do the traversing frequencies workshops. We start to recognise that there's an awful lot out there that we don't see with our physical eyes and with our machinery that are created based upon the use of the physical eyes, basically. And other things, X-rays, infrared and ultraviolet technology is still based upon the frequential range of the eye and what is above and below it. So we're not particularly good at going beyond that. And so, in terms of what's in between the space, it's based upon frequency in this instance. So if we go above the third and then the fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh frequency levels, we start to recognise that if we could see what's there, that the gaps in between the galaxies or the gaps in between the planets is occupied with other things. And so if we were to observe the universe from the 12th frequential condition, we start to see a very, very packed, a very fully occupied space, as it were. This space being the physical universe, and all of the gaps that we currently see are occupied with something or other. But each of those things that are occupied are presented on different frequency levels. Now, using an engineering system as an example, when we do computer-aided design, we sometimes hide different parts of a design, for instance, of a motor car. They're on different levels, different layers, and you can turn off different levels and layers on the computer screen, on the computer-aided design screen. So you can only see the body in white, for instance, or you can turn that off, and you can only see the electrical systems, or you can turn that off, and you can only see the chassis. You can turn that off, you can only see the glazing, for instance. You can turn that off, you can only see the trim. You turn that off, you can only see the engine, for instance. Or you can turn everything on and see the whole lot. And this is the same as what's happening with our ability to see what's in between the space within the physical universe, because we're seeing, if we turn everything on, or we're observing things from the 12th frequency level, we'd see everything that's there. And so rather than having areas where there's a galaxy here and there's a galaxy there, we'd see everything as being a complete solid mass, so to speak, within the physical universe. If we use that as an example, and then move further away, and then realise, okay, so this is a space within the multiverse. It's only 12 the frequencies associated with the multiverse. The multiverse that our source created has got 408 frequencies, which creates these 397 different simultaneous universes, which are static universes. They're not like event space where it multiplies or contracts depending upon the opportunity for duality, or the possibility of possibilities, and the possibility of possible possibilities, etc., etc. And so there's a rigid structure there which is used to create a known number of universes. That structure is based upon frequency, subdimensional components, and full dimensions. And what mankind thinks of as dimensions is actually what I'm understanding as being frequencies, basically. And the dimensions themselves are much higher levels of structure within the multiverse. But all this stuff is based upon those three components, and there's much more, there's other components to the structure of the source entity, and there's other levels of structure associated with the origin, subsequently above the source. But this allows a certain structure to work. Now, if we think of the point that with the source, there's another level of structure called zones, which are above the full dimensions, then we start to realise that there's another level of structure there which holds it all together. And so therefore there must be something else in between. Must be something else in between the structure. So there must be some space in between the space. Now, when I channeled information about this, I started to understand that there are certain entities that use these spaces in between the space to manipulate and work with the structure, modify the structure, to ensure that the multiverse and the simultaneous universes associated with the multiverse are maintained in their maximum evolutionary condition, so that we can progress as fast as possible, we can evolve as fast as possible, we can experience the multiverse, which is located within the source entity, which is located within the area of self-awareness of the origin, as fast as possible. And so these entities need to move around the structure, and so they move in between the structure itself, so the space in between the space. And a good example, and we're given these examples, and we're educated in very strange ways, or very sort of entertaining ways, was the film called The Matrix, where there was a program called the Gatekeeper or the Keymaker or something, where this character was able to unlock doors within the Matrix and allow them to go in between the structure of the Matrix. So they were able to go from one point to another point without going through the structure. So they could literally, for instance, go from the equivalent of, let's say, Christchurch in New Zealand to Santa Fe in the States by opening a door and going through that door and then closing it and going through another door. And they'd move that distance instantaneously. Whereas if they were staying within the structure, they'd have to get on a plane and suffer 24 hours plus of travelling. And so you start to realise that there's other things going on there. So the space in between the space is actually the higher level of structure that is part of the source entity, which created the multiverse. So the multiverse exists within a higher level of structure. Now the other thing to note is that Actually, if we go down to the atomic level, we start to realise that there is space in between the space, because every time we get out, we're able to discover a lower level of structure within an atom. We've gone from the atoms to the protons and neutrons and electrons. We get down below that, we get to the quark level, we get quarks, strangeness and charm. And there's another group of levels below those. There's another, I think it's 5 levels below that at least, that allows us to experience the structure within the physical universe. And so when we get down to something called the anu, which is the very basic framework of the physical universe from an atomic condition, the anu is understood by the Hindus as being the basic structure of the universe, as it were, the physical universe, that is. And this was picked up also by 2 individuals called Besant and Ledbetter, who were Western scientists, but they were trained in Hindu yogic meditative conditions. They were able to perceive these things, and they've also been picked up with some homeopathic solutions being photographed by using almost like Kirlian photography, where you're picking up auras. So these things are definitely there, but they are within the structure. So what's Marnie said there? This is perceived by RNA. Yes, and actually it's interesting because the RNA actually controls the DNA, and it feeds back information from the energetic to the physical, then back again. And scientists now recognise there's 12 different versions of RNA, and those RNA do affect the DNA. So we're starting to see different things now. As we get more and more adept at technology, at our science, we're starting to recognise that which was previously considered to be mystical information or occult information as being hard science. Today's spiritual understanding is tomorrow's hard science, so it's going that way as well. Yeah. So the space in between the space is 2 things. One is the structure of the higher structure of the source entity, which is therefore part of the higher structure of the origin. But there's also the substructure within the physical, which allows what we understand as being the atomic structure to work as well. And that space can be used to move from point A to point B within not only the physical universe but the multiverse as well. So does anybody have any questions on that? That's also quite a mouthful there. It's the structure. It's the lower level and the higher level structure of the multiverse. Any questions? Okay.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah, carry on, Marnie.
Okay. Sorry, I have really bad feedback. Turn this down. I guess my question is, how much? Sorry, I'm not very articulate right now. If the space, does the space have to be larger in order to carry out the complexity of the 3rd dimensional space that it's surrounding?
Does the space
have to be larger? The space between the space, does that increase with the complexity of the space that it's helping to structure?
If we move up the frequencies to the simultaneous universes in the multiverse, then the space, the size of the space doesn't increase, but the resolution of the space increases. That makes sense. Think of it in terms of disk space on a memory stick, for instance, where let's say 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were lucky to get 128 megabytes on a memory stick the size of a decent sized chocolate, for instance. Now we can get 128 gigabytes on the same device. So using that as an example, the space itself is is stable size-wise, but it's the resolution within that space that changes. And so we don't need to think of in terms of there's a space increase, it's the resolution that increases, and the resolution increases because the frequential condition increases. So if the frequential condition increases, the higher the frequency, the more so-called data you can house within that frequential condition. Same as with a disk space in memory stick. In terms of silicon, manufacture of silicon, I think we've now got to the point where the molecular structure of silicon is our limitation there. But in essence, what it means to us is that we are able to previously have a certain level of memory on a certain square millimeter, for instance, of silicon, and now we're able to go down to a different level of etching on that silicon, and so we can get more information in the same area. It's the same with it's pretty much the same as what we have in the multiverse. So we have more space, we have more content within the same space. If that makes sense. Does that help, Zulmani?
That was an excellent example. The computer thing got it for me. I get that.
Okay, good. We've got lots of examples. It's interesting that we've given lots of examples around ourselves to explain how everything works around us. All we need to do is recognise it. But also, one of the presentations I used to do was using multiplexing, which is another electrical engineering terminology. It's also used in radio transmission and, of course, in digital television transmission these days, where a carrier wave was used and then as a data transmission with nothing on it, and then we'd project onto that another a modulation of frequency, whether it's frequency modulation or amplitude modulation, either AM or FM, radio-wise. And depending upon where we started the sine wave that created that transmission, allowed us to actually transmit many different pieces of information on the same carrier wave. And so we can use the same carrier wave to transmit lots of different radio stations, for instance. Now also there's something else called phase angle, which is you could rotate this start point, and so that allows us to increase the level of multiplexing as well. And with digital technology, we also do something like we put encryptions in as well, and so we can encrypt various packets of data at the same time. So we increase the amount of data we can broadcast within the same space, as it were, the same frequential space. And so from the point of view of our technology, radio technology or digital technology, there's various different ways of increasing the amount of data we can transmit within the same space, within the same frequential space. And that's another way of thinking about it as well as the memory stick example. Okay. Anybody else got any questions on that?
Yes, guys, this is Arthur.
Hi, Arthur.
So the space between, let's say, between Earth and the Sun, to us it looks empty, right? So there is like a lot of stuff on Earth, and then there's empty space, and then there is a lot of stuff on the Sun.
Yeah.
So that empty space, is it actually full of something?
Yeah, it's actually full of something, but at a higher frequency. Absolutely. It's a little bit like yeah. The way I can explain it is by turning up the layers of a drawing on a CAD terminal, on a computer-aided design terminal, where if you've got a whole design of something, like a motor car, for instance, again, you have all of the levels active, then you'll see everything. You'll see the whole car. You see the paint, you see the body in white, you see the chassis, the wheels, the trim, electrical system, the glazing, the engine, the powertrain, all that sort of stuff. But as you turn certain layers off, you start to only see certain parts of the car. Like you might turn off the trim level, so you don't see the seats. You might turn off the glazing, so you don't see the glazing. You might turn off the paint, so you only see the body in white metal. You might turn off the powertrain, so you don't see the engine. You don't see the gearbox. You don't see the prop shaft going to the axles, etc. And the more you turn off, the less you see. So think of it in terms of that, is that what we're experiencing is basically in a computer design terminal, just the body in white of a car. The rest is there, but it's at different levels. It's a different level, and it's just turned off right now. But it's not really turned off. It's there, but we haven't got the ability to detect it because we're not that frequential level that allows us to detect it. We are ascending, clearly, and we will be able to detect it, and we are detecting it because we're perceiving different things now. When we start to move beyond the limitations of our mind, which is based upon the limitations of our physical body, we will then start to be able to detect and image things that are currently invisible to us but at a higher frequency within the physical universe. But yeah, it's packed. It's a little bit. Think of it in terms of of a new building where you basically get the framework there, which is loads of reinforced steel joists all bolted together, and that's what we're seeing right now. But what's really going to happen is the gaps in between the reinforced steel joists are going to be filled with bricks and insulation and plasterboard and floors and the electrical architecture and the IT architecture and the plumbing for water and the glazing and the roof and the desks and chairs and things that we normally put in buildings. So right now, what we're seeing is just the basic framework of a building. Okay, does that help out, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Like the parts of a cell wall, exactly. Like the parts of a cell wall. Very good, Marnie, thank you. Yeah. Now, actually, we are, by luck, starting to see some of the things that are in the space between space, because some of our digital photography, the coupled charge devices, the CCD array that's in digital cameras and mobile phones these days, detect things that are well above our frequential range of our eyes. I think there's something like over the 2000 nanometer range. And it interprets it and puts it into red, green, blue colour space. And so we're starting to see some things like orbs and like sometimes there's ghosts and other types of appearances of things, where we're starting to pick up the content of the physical universe that is in the frequencies above the frequencies detectable by the physical eye. And so we're starting to get the technology to see these things, and we're starting to see that there are other things that are there. But we need to progress further with that and to understand more about what, maybe we get camera technology that detects like 10,000 nanometers or 20,000 or a million nanometers above where we are now, and starts to compile an image which is reasonable to us with our physical eye. But yeah, we're starting to get there now. We're starting to see things happening because we're getting more and more sensitive detecting equipment. Okay. Any more questions on this before I move on to the meditation? I think we need this meditation big time, I think. Okay. Right, so what I'd like you to do is to sit comfortably in your chair. If you've got a straight back chair, that's fantastic. If not, then try and sit as upright as you can do. Feet on the ground, flat on the ground with your palms uppermost on your thighs, just about where the thighs meet the lower body. And close your eyes. And focus your closed eye vision on the area of the origin of the third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to imagine, or you can use a mentally spoken word to achieve the same thing because it uses your intention, that you are in a white corridor. You're in a white corridor in a building. And as you look down this corridor, there's just two walls to the left and to the right of you. But right at the very end of this corridor, there is a door, a single door. And I want you to walk down this corridor and go to that single door. And so, open the door, and inside you'll find a white room. And in that white room, you'll find me sitting down. In the middle chair are 3 chairs. So there's 3 chairs in this room, and I'm sitting in the middle chair. And I want you to imagine or use the mentally spoken word that you sit down on one of those chairs and you take my left hand with your right hand or my right hand with your left hand. And therefore, in doing so, you link with me. You become attached to me. Don't forget to close the door, of course, or ask the door to be closed. So it's just us in this room. And so some of you will be on my right hand side and some of you will be on my left hand side. It's not an issue. It doesn't matter. We're all in the same space, so a number of us can occupy the same chair. And so I want you to imagine that everybody else, Yvonne, Mo, Jeremy, Atso, Chris and Marnie, are on chairs that are away from these other chairs. So all of a sudden we've got the 3 chairs that are there, but there's also the chairs that house the other people there. So there will be 7 chairs there. It's my chair, there's Yvonne's chair, there's Mo's chair, there's Jeremy's chair, there's Atso's chair, there's Chris's chair, and there's Marnie's chair. And they're all in a circle. So each of you, in your visualization, has either my left hand with your right hand or my right hand with your left hand, and your other hand is in contact with one of the other participants. And in doing so, we're all linked together in meta-concert, in a synergetic condition where we're all focusing on the same thing. Everything within this circle is affected by the synergetic condition of what we intend to achieve. So within this circle, whatever we do is going to be affected by this 7 times 7. And of course those individuals who participate as a result of recording later as a multiplication of 7 times 7 plus the others. So we got 7 times 7. Which is 49. So we've got this increased level of functionality because we're all together in metaconcept. And I want you to imagine that the walls of this room start to go transparent, and we just happen to be in a room that is within a building, and we can see the structure of the building rather than just the walls. And now within our group, we start to rise above the building. And in the centre of us, we have what appears to be like an area of visibility. So the higher we rise, we start to see the room within this area of visibility that is in the middle of our circle. So we see the room. We rise higher above the room, we start to see the building within this circle of our linked hands. We move further up, we start to see the suburb that the building's in. As we rise higher, we start to see the city that the suburb's in. As we rise higher, we start to see the country that the city's in. As we rise higher, we start to see the land mass that the country's in. As you rise higher, we start to realise that we can see almost from an orbit level a lot of the land masses of the Earth below us. And so we move towards the east from wherever we are, or if you're far east to the west, we move towards the Russian landmass via the Ukraine or Siberia. We move to a point where we can see within our circle the landmass and the country boundaries of Russia next to the Ukraine. Now we know there's plenty of conflict there right now, where there's lots of political movements going on and lots of atrocities happening as a result of political movements and military movements. And so with our ability to see from this super bird's eye view the landmass and the country boundaries of Russia and the Ukraine within this visual area, within the circle of our metaconcept, we can provide a focus. We can provide a focus for high frequency thought processes, high frequency actions. And so I want you to imagine that you're pulling energy in through your crown chakras from the free energy that surrounds us as part of the structure of the multiverse and part of the source, which is part of the origin. We're pulling this free energy into our crown chakras and we project it out from our heart chakras into the landmass that holds the boundaries of Russia and the Ukraine. And we're projecting pure high frequency energy, pure loving energy from the source directly into that area. So rather than, for instance, it being black or dark there, the dark landmass, we start to see it change its colour. The more loving energy we give it, the more high frequency energy we give it, the land masses of the Russian and Ukraine based countries start to change from being dark and black to becoming a darker grey. That grey shade shifting from dark grey to a medium grey to a lighter grey. And then it changes from a lighter grey to almost silvery condition. The more energy we give it, the more we project through our heart chakras, pulling in energy from our crown chakras down through our alignment plexuses, projecting out through the heart chakras to the Ukraine and Russian area. We give it lots and lots and lots of high frequency, loving source entity energy. And so the silver changes to a golden colour. And as we project more energy, the landmass becomes iridescent golden energy. We continue to project more energy there. And the landmass becomes a white iridescent energy. The higher frequencies wiping out any low frequency thought processes, low frequency actions, any thoughts of doing anything abhorrent are wiped from the minds of everyone. Everything is forgiven and forgotten. Everything is considered in a higher condition. And so now the energies there are of white iridescence, pulsating, irradiating, high frequency energy. And the landmass that is the Ukraine and the Russian countries becomes equal in frequency to the highest frequency available to this area via the source. This localized area now is it's a hot spot for high frequency condition on the earth, and it glows and pulsates and irradiates iridescently. All the people start to wake up and understand what they really are, and realise the futility of what's been happening prior to this point. They recognise that they are all one, they are all the same, and there is no separation. And in hurting each other, they hurt themselves. And so they stop. And they rejoice in this newfound knowledge, this newfound understanding, and that their ability to change has been given to them. And so with the higher frequency condition given to the landmass that holds the boundaries for Russia and Ukraine, now put to the highest level, our work is done. Changes are afoot, and the realization of wrongdoing will be changed to put things right and back in harmony. So we now move our group and our visual range that's in the middle of our circle back either towards the east or to the west, depending upon where you are. Doesn't matter, we're all in the same area anyway. Back towards the country where our building and our room resides. So we move across in an orbital condition to where we feel our room is located. And we see beneath us the landmass that holds the country that our room is located in. And we drop down, and so we just see the country that our room is located in. And we drop down even further, and therefore we see the city that our room is located in within this landmass of the country. And then we go down even further, and we start to see the suburb that our building's in, where our room is. We go down even further, and we see the building itself. We drop down even further, and we start to see the room. We drop down even further, and we're in the room. We're now back in our room, within this building, this white room. So the walls start to change back from being transparent to being solid walls, solid white walls. And now we can break our circle by imagining, we're using our mentally spoken words, that the people who create the circle, those other 6 people, start to sit either in a left-hand chair or the right-hand chair, holding my left hand with their right hand or my right hand with their left hand. And so now there's just you as individuals holding either my left hand or my right hand. And so you can very slowly get up out of your chair and walk towards the door in this room, opening the door, stepping through the threshold and closing the door behind you. You walk back up this white corridor to the place that you started from. And very slowly you can open your eyes and come back into the room that you're in now physically. Bringing yourself back into the room, and if you've had a chance to drink some water, then do so. Help to ground you. But right now notice and know that you've done a wonderful piece of work. You've been of excellent service to those individuals who exist within the landmass and the country boundaries that we call Russia and the Ukraine. And you've given a lot of high frequency energies to them, and this will help significantly towards the resolution of the conflict. And thank you for that. I can see it all glowing even now as we speak. Okay. Are you all okay? Yvonne, are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Chris is saying it's an honour. Thank you. Marnie, you okay?
Yeah, just having problems with my mute button.
Okay. Okay. Atso, are you okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Mo and Jeremy, you okay?
I got very, very cold during that.
Good. Good bit of feedback. Bit of physical feedback. And Yvonne, you okay? As you can find. I'll take it as being yes. Okay, well thank you very much everybody, and I hope that the information that we've given you today has been useful. I shall send the recording out within the next half hour, 3/4 of an hour, so those individuals who didn't manage to meet up with us today can join in the same event space, but in their own time. And I'm going to announce that the next Satsanga is on the 26th, I think, of April. And we should all be in the right time zones then. I think that the end of today we've moved forwards an hour, so the gaps between the east coast and the west coast of the States become 5 hours again and 8 hours. And I believe that we end up being, rather than 13 hours apart with New Zealand, we end up being 11 hours apart. So it's different. Of course, the difference between the...
Yeah. Our clocks change next week, God.
Okay, so yes, so...
Next Sunday.
Yeah, so on the 26th of April, we'll be back to the shorter time, won't we, of 11 hours apart, which is good. And Yvonne's just said thank you. Okay, it's been fantastic. Thank you, Yvonne. Good. Okay, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. I'll let you go. And thank you all very much for being online today, and thank you all very much for helping to raise the frequencies of the Ukraine and the Russian area. Thank you very much, and namaste to you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Did you see the aliens in Crete?